hey, we see that you have a $50,000 balance. Are you able to pay this in full? And the taxpayer's like, no, I can't afford that. Now, the reality of it is a lot of times that comes from the lack of withholdings, that comes from the failure to pay quarterly tax. We don't know what caused the taxpayer to owe the balance.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the CPA Talk series. Today, we are talking about a part of the profession that many CPAs come across, but not everyone specializes in, and that's tax resolution. Most firms handle compliance work every day, but when IRS notices, collections, or unresolved tax debt enter the picture, the conversation quickly shifts from technical work to client reassurance, strategy, and sometimes crisis management as well. And that's why I'm really excited to have Rachel Gibbs with us today. Rachel is an enrolled agent and NTPI fellow and the founder of the Trifecta Tax Relief. She works closely with both taxpayers and CPA firms to navigate complex IRS situation while helping clients move forward with confidence. Rachel, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Great introduction, by the way.
Thank you. Our research team is pretty good when they do research about the guests. All right. Well, I always like to begin with the journey, behind the expertise that our guest carries, and I would love to start this discussion as well with the same note. So, what first drew you into tax resolution work, and how did the path eventually led to building Trifecta Tax Relief? If you can throw some light on this.
Oh, well, that's a very unique story. So, I have to say this: my father is a CPA.
Hmm.
So, he was a corporate CPA. He's retired now, and
Okay.
early on, I did not want to fall in that path. The whole
Hmm.
idea of being this legacy CPA, being this legacy, accountant. I didn't really initially want to do that. It
Hmm.
took having a family member who had some extreme tax issues that couldn't
Hmm.
get resolved. They got levied from IRS and the state. And I was younger. I was in my early 20s. And we had to hire, it was a family member, so they had to hire a tax attorney. Well, the tax
Hmm.
attorney messed the whole thing up. They put them on a full pay with the
Wow.
IRS. Yeah, the family member owed like $200,000. It was over years.
Wow.
They were a truck driver,
Hmm.
and owner operator, and so the tax attorney set them up for a full pay. What that means
Hmm.
is they had to pay the full 200,000 principal plus the interest plus the penalties. So I
Wow.
said, well, why would the tax attorney do that? So my
Hmm.
involvement with that particular case led me into this. You know what? I need to be helping people. Is there a way for me to help others without being a tax attorney? So then I started doing some research. I said, well, CPAs normally don't do this work. And well, I don't want to
Hmm.
take the 4-part rigorous exam. So I decided, hey, I would use my degrees that I already have,
Hmm.
and I would
Hmm.
study to become an enrolled agent, which are
Okay.
federal tax practitioners. And being an enrolled agent, I would have the same representation rights as a CPA and a tax attorney. So basically, I can do that tax representation work, tax resolution work without having to go back to school, without spending years of study. So, and that's what I did.
Okay. Wonderful. That background really helps set the stage because many CPAs don't plan to work in tax resolution, but they
Right,
often find themselves dealing with these situations through their clients. So,
right.
from your experience, what are the some of the biggest misconceptions CPAs or clients have when dealing with IRS collection or tax debt? And more importantly, where do things usually start, to go a little off track?
I just want to say this. A lot of CPAs don't believe in the work that we do. They will
Hmm.
simply tell their clients, call the IRS and just get on a payment plan. Sometimes that's a lot of times that's not the answer. We need to pull tax transcripts. We need to pull wage transcripts. We need to look at all the areas of opportunity with that taxpayer. Just telling them to call, that's not going to get them all of that information. And even
That's
if they
actually the
do,
last settlement, isn't it?
yeah,
That should be
yeah,
the last settlement.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It should be the last. That should be the last resort. The first resort should be, reaching out to someone like ourselves or somebody that specializes. Some CPAs do specialize, very few do in tax resolution. So the misconception is the taxpayer can just call and do this themselves. I've seen many cases where they try to do that and they end up with wage garnishments. They end up with bank account levies because they don't know what to do. So it's
Right.
this concept of, oh, taxpayer can just call, everything, all will be well. IRS will put you
Hmm.
on an installment agreement. Yeah, they will, but you'll end up paying payments that you can't even afford to pay for 72 months compared to when
Right.
somebody like myself calls. We're looking at all the data, all the tax data. We're looking for all the windows of opportunity. So that's what I would say is a misconception.
Right, right. And I mean, beyond the technical side, one challenge I hear from the firm owners all the time is how to communicate these situations to the client. I mean, it's very easy to tell them call the IRS and get on a payment plan. But when a client moves from routine tax work into a resolution situation, how can CPAs communicate that shift in a way that maintains trust and confidence both?
I think that begins with the CPA having knowledge of the tax representation piece or the tax resolution piece. If they're not familiar with that, they don't know what to tell their clients. So I think the communication starts before they even talk to the client. I recommend CPAs take at least one webinar, one class on what tax representation is. It doesn't mean that they have to do it, but at least they will be knowledgeable of what it is. And what that conversation looks like, hey, we see that you have a $50,000 balance. Are you able to pay this in full? And the taxpayer's like, no, I can't afford that. Now, the reality of it is a lot of times that comes from the lack of withholdings, that comes from the failure to pay quarterly tax. We don't know what caused the taxpayer to owe the balance, but the CPA has to be knowledgeable on, okay, they owe this huge balance, they can't afford to pay it. Now what? Now, what may mean that, hey, we have some partnered enrolled agents who specialize in this. I want you to have a conversation with them. I think that's a more reasonable conversation to a CPA who does not do this type of work.
Isn't it also important to know how to say things? I mean, a master class for all the sales professionals listening to this podcast. Uh, you know, uh, uh, yes is the best way to say no, is what I have learned over the period of time. That whenever there is a request from any of our prospect or client, and the definite answer is an obvious no, that we cannot, do this or something like that, I would first say yes, you are right. This is how it needs to be, but unfortunately, or because of so and so reasons, we cannot do that. So I think it's also equally important to emphasize on, apart from what to say and what to communicate, but also how to communicate.
Right. And they can let them know. I think with that, how they talk to the client, they let them know, hey, they can even say, we have a specialized division that handles this. And that specialized division could be an outsider like myself who they've contracted with to handle these type of cases, to keep that client in-house. I don't want the tax prep. I don't want I don't want the bookkeeping. I don't want that. I want to do the resolution piece. So they can keep that client in house by simply saying, "Hey, we have someone on staff that can assist you with this. Let me get their calendar or something, something close along the lines of that." I think would be helpful as well because some taxpayers may not want to be pushed onto someone else, an outsider. So giving them that idea of, hey, we have somebody in house that can help you with this helps as well.
Okay. So, I mean, talking about your practice, do you partner with CPA firm and become an extended arm of their practice, or
Yeah, we
go
have
ahead,
we
please?
have our marketing and everything set up for those referral partners. There is a revenue share. However, with CPAs, there are limitations around, referral fees, finders fees. So we
Mhm,
have to make sure they get the proper guidance from their state that they're licensed with to see what that profit share looks like. If they just want to, pay us directly to do the work, they can do that as well. If they say, hey, we'll pay you X amount of dollars per hour per case,
mhm,
they can do
mhm,
that as well. But the reality of it is, if a taxpayer gets a notice, they're not coming to
mhm.
me first. Now they might,
Right,
if they
right.
see this podcast,
That's what I
they
wanted to
may,
understand. Yeah,
if
that's what I
if
wanted to
if
understand.
if a taxpayer gets a notice, the first person they're going to is the person that prepared their taxes. So
Correct.
what we want to do, we want to partner with those people. So that way, okay, say for example, a client comes to you and say, hey, I have this notice. I have this intent to levy notice. What do I do
Hmm.
with it? And you're like, I don't know what to do with it. Or, you might not say that, but you're thinking like, I don't know what to do with this. But then you have this partner. Oh yeah, Rachel, Trifecta Tax Relief can assist with this. She's well versed in this. And they form that communication to where they get me in front of the client and let me take care of that.
This
Hmm.
also ties into something many firms are navigating right now, and that is nothing but capacity related
Right,
issues.
right.
So, between deadlines, advisory work, and unexpected client issues, it's
Right.
becoming harder to do everything internally. And I
Yes.
think one shouldn't be doing everything internally, is because if you are the business owner, if you are a CPA practice owner, an accounting company owner, you have better things to take care of. I think
Right.
they should be focusing more on building the client relationship, doing more of the advisory work,
Yes.
connecting with industry peers and
Yes.
understand the industry level trends, etc. So,
Yes.
from your perspective, how should firms think about what work truly needs to stay in house versus what can be delegated or handled through collaboration with more uh, complex cases that come up?
Mhm. Each firm needs to focus and horn in on what they're good at, where their knowledge base is. For example, I don't do corporate returns. I'm not going to take the time to learn how to do them because, well, an S corp is different than a corporate return. Partnerships, all those they all are taxed differently. Basis is different. Look, I'm talking to the CPAs now, talking about basis. Everything is different. But I know with individual taxation, it pretty much stays the same. I mean, there are a few adjustments, but a 1040 return is a 1040 return. I know it line per line. I can analyze it and go through it line per line. So I'm not going to take resources, which could be time, money, effort, and energy, to rush and learn a thing when I am a master of something else. If you are a CPA and you're a master of corporate taxation, you're a master at bookkeeping and accounting and financial statements, focus on that. Have your staff keep that in house. That's your meat. Let the potatoes go to somebody else before you make mistakes because trying to and I know this from experience, trying to rush and learn and catch up in areas that you're a novice in will cost you and your clients more than contacting an outside master.
Right, right. In both the sense, it's going to cost them more in many other factors as well, not necessarily uh, monetary benefits or monetary
Hmm.
expenses side, but
Right.
otherwise as well. So let's say, for an example, if there is a senior staff member
Hmm.
working for a CPA, a
Hmm.
CPA practice, working as a manager and managing multiple clients, but
Right.
if he is also supposed to do the basic cleanup of the books, he probably will find it repetitive in nature. He will get bored out of it. He will start
Hmm.
looking out for options, and then you and I mean that CPA practice owner end up, hiring someone new,
Mm-hmm.
invest a lot of time and money in doing
Yeah.
hiring, training, etc. So it's not
Yep.
only that monetary benefit that you get when you outsource, but
Yes.
you get expertise, help, and
Mhm.
I think they are able to utilize the resources in a better way.
Right. And they still can advertise. Like a lot of people say, well, can I advertise the service? Sure. Sure, but just let them know that, the individual that they make connections with might not be actually doing the work. Just let them know that, because you can still, my firm does this. Like I tell people, yes, we can help with corporate returns. I'm just not the person doing them. I have partners that do that. I don't like bookkeeping, so I don't do bookkeeping. I have partners that do that. So, but when it comes to somebody's under audit and I have to go, visit with the revenue officer, I can do that in my sleep. Like I'm not nervous about that. I'm comfortable with that. A lot of CPAs, they don't even want to do that. They don't want to sit before an auditor or a revenue officer. Their client, they know their client is under audit and they mess something up and they don't have receipts, and they're like, I don't want to do that. They don't want to sit on the phone with the IRS. Meanwhile, I get a kick out of doing that every day. Matter of fact, once I get out of this podcast, I have to call the IRS about some things. I enjoy that. I enjoy exercising that, and I enjoy advocating for my clients in that perspective. Some people, they just want to do the returns. They're all about the numbers. So in that case, they need to stick to that and just bring somebody else on their team to assist with the other stuff.
Right, right. I'm glad you mentioned that they just need to inform their end clients that it's gonna be done, but it's gonna be done
Hmm.
by someone else that they know or they
Hmm.
have the partnership with.
Right.
And this applies with outsourcing the work to an offshore company as well,
Correct.
like
Correct.
Datamatics Business Solution, the unit, the company that we represent. We do a lot of
Right.
back office work for CPAs, and
Hmm.
CPAs are just supposed to inform their clients about
Right.
outsourcing the work. And let's talk about 70 to 16. Now, that's a form that is needed only for 1040s to be outsourced. So, all the
Right.
listeners, all the CPA
Right.
practice owners, all the tax practice owners, please make a note of it. It's always good to inform your end clients that you are outsourcing your work, but by
Correct.
rule, by law, only 70 to 16 is needed when you are outsourcing 1040s. When you are outsourcing your bookkeeping, your even business tax, your
Right.
client accounting service support, or be it audit support or CFO level support or anything else, it is not necessary to have 70 to 16 signed by your end clients. Like I said, it's always a good practice because, see,
It's a great
outsourcing is no more, yeah, because outsourcing is no more an uncharted territory that no one is aware of. Be it
right.
your AT&T connection or be it your DirecTV, Dish Network, Bank of America, or American Express,
Right.
all of their customer service is not there in the United States. It has been outsourced since years to companies like India, Philippines,
Right.
Bangladesh, and other Asian countries, and nowadays even some African countries.
And Sussy, I want to say as well, I want to add on as well, a lot of tax softwares as well require that 7216 as well, just to be able to use different third party, yeah, to use different third party softwares and things. So that's part of my process. We just automatically get that. We automatically get it in the organizers and the intake. Clients automatically sign it. Whether we use it or not, we go ahead and just get them to give us their authorization. So it makes things a lot smoother. So they can't say, oh, well, you disclose my information to this third party, even though it's one of my softwares that we use, but they didn't know it. They may have gotten an email or a text message, even from our tax prep software or our tax resolution case management software. If they were not informed that we use that and we're using their personal data, there could be some trouble there.
Got it. Okay.
So,
Yeah, but like I said, it's always a good practice to let
mhm.
them know in advance before they get to know this through a software notification or something
Right,
else.
exactly.
Now, when let's say the firm decides, they do decide to collaborate, whether that's a tax resolution specialist like you or
Mhm.
outsource support team like us,
Mhm.
the structure and accountability become very important. So,
Yes.
what best practices have you seen that help ensure strong communication, client protection, and successful outcomes when CPAs work alongside external specialists and support teams?
Well, one thing is a best practice updates, whether that's weekly updates, whether that, on a Zoom call, if that's an email. Also adding that firm, like for me, example, I have a portal, I have a secure portal. Even adding in that CPA firm where they can see the status of the project with that client. I think that helps keep them abreast, let them know that their client's being taken care of, and also letting them know that the data is secure. So I think that that alleviates a lot of stress, because a lot of times when you outsource, if you're not in constant communication in some form, you don't know what's being done and what's not being done. You don't need if you don't know if there's more input needed. You don't know if there's improvements that are needed. So you have to establish a routine line of communication, even if it's a 10-minute conversation weekly, giving updates like, hey, we have client ABC. This is what's going on. We talked to the IRS. We've talked to the state tax authorities. This is what's going on, just making sure that they know. So if the client goes to them directly, because remember, they have the real rapport. We might have some, but they're the firm that the company normally works with. So that way, if the client reaches out to them and say, hey, what's going on with my case? You can give them a nice little summary and an update letting them know what's going on.
Got it. Got it. You mentioned data security. So with us, we have some internal protocols and processes that we use, and we are obviously certified on different platforms. That includes ISO certification, ISO 27001 for information security. We are AICPA SOC 2 compliant. We are GDPR compliant, and we have enforced those policies which are pretty much stringent in nature in our overall ecosystem when we work on our client system for the tax work or bookkeeping or anything of that sort. Is there any protocol? Is there any certification that a tax resolution expert is also supposed to have, like you?
There's not a We don't have a direct governance just over that, but the IRS requires us to have a written security plan. So we have to submit that to the IRS every year when we renew our P10. We also have CAF numbers. So we have different numbers that we have to, on renewal, we have to provide them certain documentation in the case of a data breach. So far as do we have to, I'm not a CPA, so I don't have to adhere to, their governance like they do, but we do provide that, we have the security plan and all of that. And that's readily available. If somebody says, hey, I want to see it, they'll know how data's being stored, how it's being used, how it's disposed of. They'll get a whole draft, they'll get our whole report showing that. And we're flexible. I can speak for myself. If there's a firm that says, hey, I need you to have this security data, whatever, most of us are willing to get it. Yeah, we would be willing to get it if it was necessary.
Got it. Got it. Well, some exciting topics, obviously, but as a last note, if you could give CPAs, or for that matter, all the listeners, one simple piece of advice when dealing with clients under IRS pressure, what would that be?
To reassure them that whatever tax problem they have, it can be resolved.
Mhm.
It can be resolved. There is resolution in all tax cases, whether that's, doing currently not collectible. That just means that a client just they're in financial hardship. They just can't pay it. Whether that's, settling it, selling I can't talk. Settling it for less, they can do
Mhm.
that. They can get an installment agreement if they're, based on the statute of limitation
Mhm.
for collections, which is, we talk about CSEDs. We look at those dates to see when does the debt expire. Normally, typically the debt expires 10 years after the assessment. So
10
with
years?
yeah, with the IRS,
Oh, okay.
with the state, it may be completely different depending on the state. But yeah, with the
I see.
IRS, they have 10 years to collect from the assessment date. So,
Oh, okay.
so you know that's why it's important to pull those transcripts, analyze the transcripts. That's the first thing that we do. But
Hmm.
there can be a lot of opportunity just looking at the transcript because you may notice that hey, a lot of these debts are getting ready to expire or they are expired. You call it
Hmm.
in, say, hey, you know what? This shouldn't even be in collections anymore. This is reached the statute of limitation, and it
Hmm.
falls off. So, and
I
that
see.
happens to people every day. They don't know it. They don't know to go ask for it. They don't know how to look for it. They don't know how to do those things. But that's what we do. So that's why I can say, no matter the tax situation, it can be resolved.
Got it. Well,
We just want to help
some golden
taxpayers
words.
sleep at night.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for such a wonderful advice and to the point. And overall, Rachel, thank you so much for being a
Thank you
part
for
of this
having me.
podcast. This has been a really practical and insightful conversation. And you have shared perspectives that I think many CPAs will find immediately useful, especially when navigating sensitive client situation. So,
Yes.
for for everyone listening, we will include Rachel's details in the show notes, so you can learn more about her work at Trifecta Tax Relief. And as always, thank you for tuning in to the CPA Talk series. If you find today's discussion helpful, please subscribe, share it with your peers, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.